My voice is gone. The way I discovered this wonderful new development in my life requires me to reveal how pathetic I am once again. I talk to my cat. Siri even does little trilling noises back in response, so it's almost like having a real conversation, right? It started off with my voice slowly getting raspier on the night that Rami cornered me in the stairwell. I woke up on Saturday morning to my little furry bundle of mischief sitting on the kitchen table and scooting a cup of water around with her paw. I tried to tell her to get off, but nothing came out. Whenever I try to speak, the vocal cords just won't move, like they're atrophied, too stiff and dry to vibrate as they're supposed to. I can't even make a squeak. I won't lie, I completely broke down. The weekend is over and my voice still hasn't returned. Yeah, I wasn't the best at talking before this happened. Heck, there were times when I wished I had an excuse not to speak. But now that the choice has been taken away from me, I'm an absolute wreck. Between having my voice stolen and knowing that Rami is able to track my every move, it feels like I've been caged inside my own body. After Googling some basic ASL phrases, I set out to the local convenience store for some supplies to get me through this. Even if no one could understand me, I figured that it would at least get the point across that I couldn't speak until I could get a notebook and some pens. My bad sense of humor also won on this trip, resulting in me buying a package of those "Hello, I'm" badges and filling one out so that it'd read, "Hello, I'm mute." Sad face. As I was waiting in line to check out, I noticed a woman walking in whose feet were backwards. She was wearing a long skirt, so at first I wondered if my highly stressed out brain had imagined it. I got out of line and pretended like I'd forgotten to grab something. I know, you'd think I'd learn by now to mind my own fucking business, but given my fragile mental state, I had to make sure I wasn't completely losing it. The last thing I needed were visual hallucinations to go along with all the other blood-drinking side effects. The woman was looking at pre-made lunches, and it appeared that she was not enthusiastic about her choices. She had the longest hair I'd ever seen in my life, reaching down to just below her waist, partially obscuring her face like a dark curtain. While she deliberated over soggy sandwiches in plastic wrap, I tried to subtly get another look at her feet. Wow, that is not a sentence I ever expected myself to type in my life. Her skirt rustled a bit and, yep, her toes were where her heels should be. Not wanting to get caught, I grabbed the first item I found in front of me, a thing of spicy pickles, and marched back to the checkout. I just had to act normal and not draw attention to myself. With any luck, she wouldn't be like Rami. Of course, luck hasn't been on my side this week. While waiting, the package of pens broke because why wouldn't they? I sighed and bent down to pick them up when I noticed another hand reaching for them at the same time. Its nails were adorned with little flowers. As I glanced over, I saw that the hand belonged to the woman with the backwards feet. She grinned beautifully at me and kindly handed me my pens. I smiled back and clumsily tried to sign thanks. Afterwards, I stared straight ahead, not wanting to risk any further eye contact. Yeah, she seemed friendly at the moment, but Rami had seemed nice, too. I walked out like nothing was wrong, hoping I could get to my car without incident. Excuse me. Well, so much for that. I turned around with a stiff smile on my face to see the backwards-footed woman trotting over to me. She raked her ridiculously long hair out of her face, beaming at me. I'm kind of bored tonight. Want to go somewhere? I did not. I whipped out one of my new pens to write, "I'm sorry, but I have plans." When she saw the note, she made a little pouty face that would probably be cute to other people. That's a shame. I figured you'd want some answers. But if you'd like to spend the rest of your life mute... Her sad, puppy face slowly turned into an impish grin. Shit, how'd she know? My thoughts must have shown on my face because her smile got even wider as she grabbed my hand and started leading me to the bar across the street. Let's get a drink. When we were seated in a nearly empty bar, I used the notepad to ask her how she knew that my muteness was unnatural. She told me that she could smell Rami on me from the moment she walked into that store. That answer made me want to move my chair further away from her. What did he do to me? I scribbled. I think the question you should really be asking is, what did I do to him? She responded cryptically, swirling her whiskey sour around. As I started to write again, she continued. Think back. Did you say something insulting, perhaps? Or maybe you were caught in a lie? My hand froze. I did lie to him in the break room when he'd asked me all those questions. Had Rami been testing me to see if I'd tell the truth? Or maybe the voice theft was simply to keep me quiet about the beheading. The woman with the backwards feet smirked. I could tell you how to get your voice back. I could even tell you all about the entity that toys with you. But there will be a cost. Dread settled in my stomach. I used the notebook to ask her what the price was. The smile she gave me probably looked charming to onlookers, but she reminded me of a cat that had found a rodent it was eager to dismember. She suddenly stood up and declared that she needed to smoke and wanted me to follow her. No way. I didn't want to be alone with her, especially not with the way she just looked at me. I held up the note I just scribbled, which read, Please tell me the price first. Just a drink. That's all, she responded lightly. I pointed to her whiskey sour, then wrote out, Sure, I'll pay for it. The woman with backwards feet impatiently beckoned for me to join her outside. I still didn't feel right, but I'd paid her price, didn't I? That meant she wouldn't require anything else, right? In hindsight, I see where I went wrong. She'd offered me 2 things. Buying the whiskey sour for her had only paid for 1. She insisted that she had to tell me what I needed to know outside to avoid being eavesdropped on. Even though my gut was screaming at me not to oblige her, I followed her outside. Another thing that made me nervous was that I could sense that Rami was close by. I began to worry that he was considering coming for me again. What if he was on his way to me right now? Would he be angry if he knew I had accepted the strange woman's offer? And if so, what would be my punishment? Would my eyes be taken next? While I spent all that time panicking over the possibility of Rami showing up, I failed to notice the threat right in front of me. The woman with backwards feet threw herself bodily into me, knocking me to the ground. As I struggled to push her off, she sank her teeth into where my shoulder met my neck and began to drink. Her teeth tore at my skin, deep enough to make the muscles twitch involuntarily. And as she sucked the blood from my body, it felt as if she was ripping my soul out along with it. I was having my life stolen away, and I couldn't even scream. 2 people walked towards the entrance of the bar. I reached for them, hoping, praying that they'd see me. I tried slapping the ground, kicking and flailing from beneath her, but I couldn't get their attention. I couldn't make a sound. As my only hope for rescue left, tears ran from my eyes. The woman yanked her head to the side, ripping my flesh off, hard enough to make my entire body shake, as if I were a toy in the jaws of a vicious dog. But I still couldn't scream or even sob as she drank my life away. The bar's neon sign got blurry as she swallowed more of my blood. I couldn't die like this, please, not like this. I sensed Rami's presence before I saw him. He appeared suddenly and seized the woman's ear, dragging her away from the cartilage as if she was a naughty child. She howled like a coyote, clawing at his hand and leaving little scratches, but he didn't seem to notice. After taking a moment to make her scream again by roughly yanking her head to the side, he eventually tossed her so that she toppled to the ground, the back of her head slamming against the bar's brick wall. Rami turned to me then as I laid, limp, prone, and bleeding out onto the ground. I weakly tried to scoot away, but in 2 steps he was by my side, propping me up against a wall and pressing something to the missing chunk on my neck. It felt like a shirt or a cloth napkin. It didn't matter. He let out a small laugh. Damn, she really got you good, huh? You're a bad judge of character. You know that, lab rat? He grabbed my hand and set it gently, but firmly on top of the mystery cloth clotting the wound on my neck, before turning back to the woman. Even though I felt faint, I pressed down on the bite and winced as it made sparks of pain shoot from my shoulder down to my fingertips. Still on the ground, the woman with the backwards feet tried to crab walk away from Rami, eyes widened in terror. He was able to easily keep up with her with those long legs of his. She sputtered. I'm sorry. I wasn't going to kill him. I swear, I wouldn't. Rami's smile wasn't friendly as he seized her ankle and pulled her towards him. She squealed and tried to kick him off, but as strong as she wasn't a match for him. I don't know how nobody inside the bar heard any of this. Neither entity was making any attempt to be quiet during this entire struggle. Either the soundproofing in that place is impeccable, or the people inside just didn't want to deal with it. I began to feel lightheaded as Rami rested his hand on the woman's chin. Her eyes were squeezed shut, her body limp as she stopped fighting. He tapped her cheek with his thumb until she eventually opened her eyes. He's paid in full, Rami reminded her, that grin not leaving his face as he turned her head to look at me. You should give him his due. The look in her eyes was of pure, raging hate as she stared me down. In her mind, it was my fault that Rami had set his sights on her. However, at that point, I didn't want answers anymore. I wanted to go to a hospital and maybe therapy. The woman with backwards feet spat. Your boyfriend here is a djinn. Rami made a point to slide his sunglasses down to his nose so that she could see him roll his eyes at her. Really? Could you be more vague? You don't even want to specify what type of djinn that I am? I swear, baby immortals have no integrity these days. She growled at him, showing her teeth. He flicked her nose and in an exasperated tone told her to stop, then held her jaw again. Her brown skin turned red, probably from the humiliation of being treated like she was nothing more than a yappy little puppy. You promised him 2 things. That was the first. What was the second? He continued calmly. The woman roared. Fuck you. The second thing, if you please, Rami repeated flatly. She scowled at me again and spoke through clenched teeth. You get your voice back by atoning. Atoning? It had to be more complicated than a simple apology. Rami sighed. Well, that was a waste of time, now wasn't it? He let go of her chin and she tore herself away from him, her teeth clenched. He bent down and lifted me to my feet. Instantly, my vision was overtaken by a dark, shadowy tunnel, and he had to hold my shoulders to keep me from falling. I must have fainted because the next thing I knew, I was laying on my couch in the dark. My neck and shoulder were killing me to the point where just breathing was enough to make me flinch. There was a jingling sound from the kitchen as Rami dangled a stuffed mouse in front of Siri's face. His strange eyes glowed as he grinned at me and asked, How are you feeling? I pathetically held my thumb up, then cringed as the movement brought a new wave of pain. Why couldn't she have at least bit me on my left shoulder? Rami dropped the cat toy, much to Siri's disappointment, and strode over to me. He started off by telling me that I was a fucking idiot. No disagreement there. He then informed me that if I'd gone to the hospital, I would have needed stitches and maybe a transfusion. He didn't give me specifics, but he did something to it so that it would heal faster than normal. He couldn't stop it from the scarring, though. He also winked at me when he told me that he didn't do it out of the kindness of his heart. I'd have to repay him once I'd recovered, but he promised he'd be more fair than the woman with the backwards feet had been. That wasn't much comfort.